Hi, I'm John Lentini. I'm with Anime on Location. I'm here at Ohayocon 2015. I'm here with Helen McCarthy. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you.
Are you enjoying your convention tour over here in the States? We've seen you at Anime Central and seen you at a couple other shows that you've toured. How are you enjoying the convention tour over here?
Oh, I love being in the States, and there's so many places I've never been to. This is my first time in Ohio. So it was lovely for me to come over and be somewhere new, be somewhere different. It's lovely to see old friends at conventions, but one of the good things about moving around is that you see different faces, and that's always fun.
What were conventions like when you first attended them, though?
Now that depends whether you're talking about our first Star Trek conventions in Britain. Well, our very first Trek conventions in Britain were homemade, as most of the big anime cons were back in the day. I mean, I remember talking to a lot of people about different American conventions. They started off with 60, 100, 200, 250 people. We were just the same. So you'd hire a church hall or something and you'd do a one-day event. And then people would say, that was great, my friend wants to come and his sister wants to come. And you'd get a slightly bigger place next time. And maybe in a couple of years, you'd get a weekend event at a small hotel. So we just progressed that way. And it was very friendly. You knew everybody at the convention. It was a big event to meet somebody new there. And great fun.
When did anime conventions start up in the UK?
The first anime convention in the UK was in 1991 in Sheffield, and it was put on by a science fiction store that had started to sell anime and decided it would be a good idea to run a convention to kind of say thank you to their local fans who'd supported it and bought it. So that was the very first British Anime Con, but the first convention at which anime was shown was the 1990 EasterCon, the National Science Fiction Convention, and that was my fault.
All your fault, all the blame.
All mine, yeah. I made them have an anime program.
Okay.
I was one of the committee running the convention, and essentially I said, look, give me all the spare time you've got in all the rooms, and I will get an audience in those rooms every minute that they're open. And they gave me about 37 hours. Some of the wee small hours, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. But for the whole of the anime program, we had at least half a dozen people in every room. And since it was the first time that there'd been an anime program at a British convention, that was quite good.
I know this is a loaded question, but how has anime changed over that time period since 91 to now?
I don't think it's changed. I think it's got technologically savvier.
Okay.
And I think our perception of it has changed. I think anime has always been bigger than we saw it. In the West, we started to see it as robots, as things for mainly boys, mainly teens, mainly college age. Then the magical girls kicked in and we saw it as, things for girls, mainly boys, mainly teens, mainly college age. But anime has always been bigger than that. And what it seems to me is that now we have so much better communication. Broadband enables people to see all kinds of things. Now so many more providers are trying to fight piracy by making stuff available in translation sooner. People have got a chance to see how big and how diverse anime is. So in a sense, anime hasn't changed, but we've changed.
And leading into that, the Anime Encyclopedia, do you feel that helps fans even today?
I don't know if it helps them. I know it annoys a lot of them. It makes a lot of them laugh. And with the new one, it's certainly going to improve the muscle tone of fandom because it weighs over 2 kilos. So if you get 2 of them, you can lift weights.
Everyone will be have plenty of exercise at convention.
Buff fans, I love the idea. But no, the idea with the encyclopedia was it was the book that I wanted when I first became a fan. I wanted to know who were the people making this, what was its history, where did it come from. I saw this cool show, where can I see another cool show like it? I saw this cool show, where can I see another show made by the same people, because that's probably going to be great too. So the encyclopedia came from my own need to know, and it's still driven by Jonathan's and my passion for uncovering more of the history and the background and the little secret linkages that make up anime. Jonathan Clements, my co-author, is, I think, at heart an industrial historian. He wants to know all about what makes the anime industry tick, how it works, why it works, what hasn't worked, what's failed, where the relationships are, where the links are. I come at it, I'm fascinated by that side, but I come at it more from a narrative point of view. I want to know about the artists, their creative process, their team-ups, their fallouts, their breakups, their disasters, their triumphs. So from those two perspectives, we're both really committed to telling about the whole of anime, not just the bits that people might be aware of, not just the bits that people like, not the myths people want peddled, but as close as we can get to the truth.
So you and Jonathan bring an overall perspective and make a good team on this.
I think we make an excellent team on this. He is awesomely intelligent. Obviously a great linguist, but also a very, very fine historian. But we've worked well together from the day he came knocking on the door at Anime UK while he was still in college and said, do you need anyone who can speak Japanese?
What does the future hold for the anime industry going forward, do you think?
It's really difficult to call futures at the moment because if you look at the arc of mass entertainment, it's been moving, and the move has accelerated in the past few years from a social consumption model where you get together first of all in halls, in cinemas with people, and then in your home with your family, to a solitary consumption model where now it's an event for families to sit down for TV together. It's an event for flatmates to sit down to TV together. It used to be that the little box was in the corner and it was on, it was part of your life, it was one of the family, and the whole family would dip in and out of it. Now people watch in 5-minute chunks on their smartphones, people watch on their tablets, people watch in their own rooms because kids now have computers and TVs in their rooms. TV is almost dying as a model. So it's hard to say what's going to happen because anime has always been very much driven by transmission. When TV came along, that gave anime a huge boost. When the video recorder came along, that gave anime a huge boost. When broadband came along, that gave anime a huge boost. It's not always been unalloyed. You've had to deal with more and more piracy and more difficulties. But technology and technological improvement has driven the expansion of anime. And it's hard to imagine how technology that fragments an audience and makes it easier for the audience to see work without feeding anything back to the industry will be positive. On the other hand, what we've got is people who really want to make anime and people who really want to consume anime. And I think between them, those two groups will somehow cobble an industry together in the future. But it won't look like we imagine. Because when you think back, I mean, when I started writing my first book, I could not have imagined super fast broadband. I couldn't have imagined what the internet would do for distribution. And I think we're in the same position now. None of us can really say, unless we've talked to some very clever technical people, what anime will look like in 10 years. Because none of us can really say what broadcast entertainment will look like in 5 years. Or if indeed it will have collapsed and gone to narrowcast and will be selling smaller and smaller numbers of shows to smaller and smaller niches of audience. What will that do to prices and profits? What will that do to corporate structures? What will that do to established studios? The future's an unknown.
When fans had to go watch anime on the TV, it was a very social event, but now it's not as much. Do you feel these conventions help the social aspect with the anime fans?
I think conventions have kind of replaced the social aspect of anime because when I started watching anime, I started because Steve and I had our own place and we got a VCR. Huge amount of money for it back then because it played American and French tapes as well as British. And so because we had all this stuff, we started inviting people round to see it. Just friends at first, and then friends of friends, and then word spread, and then we started our newsletter and invited all comers. So once a month, we'd have a Sunday at our place where people would bring snacks and drinks and nibbles, and we would run anime for 6 or 7 hours to, maybe 30 or 40 people in one living room. And that was great. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. But I think now to get together with like-minded people, most people do come to conventions because it's here that you can actually gather. Maybe you're in a small town, maybe you're in a high school where nobody else is into anime or nobody else is into manga. Maybe your parents are a bit worried about you spending all your time on this comic book stuff. When you come to a convention, you can forget all that and just hang out with your own people. And you can do that online, but it's not the same. I think the aspect of actually meeting other fans and saying, wow, you're here, that's really cool. Yeah, we can play this game together now. We don't just have to play it online. That's fantastic.
And for you yourself, do you have any current or upcoming projects you can talk about at this time?
Oh, wow, do I ever?
Just give you the mic.
Yeah, you could do, yeah. But this, for me, I've called this the year of 3 books.
Okay.
Because over a period of 9 months, I've actually created and will have published 3 books. Okay. In fairness, one of them is the 3rd edition of the Anime Encyclopedia, so that's cheating a bit because that has been in Genesis for a while. But we started off in July last year with my brief history of manga, which is a book that I love to do. It was for something so short, it was a lot of trouble to do because it's much harder to write short and well than long and well. But it essentially, in 96 pages, gives you the whole history of the medium. And not just in Japan, but around the world. So you can see what happened with Japanese animation, where it first came to Europe, which surprises a lot of people, where it first appeared in English, which surprises even more people, where it's been and where it's going. You know, it's a fun little book, and it's tiny. It's the size of a small, door paperback, that kind of thing, and really lightweight, but it's crammed with pictures. In fact, the one complaint I've had from people about it is that it would have been nice to do it in a bigger format so the pictures could have been bigger. But, there are payoffs. And I wanted a book that was so easy and so unintimidating that you could just slip it in your pocket and browse it on the train. And that's exactly what it is. It's a really serious, scholarly history that you can slip in your pocket and dip into on the train. And then, of course, there's the encyclopedia, which Jonathan and I actually never stop updating. From the minute we finished the first one, we were updating it. But we had the first one in 2001, the second edition in 2006. This edition is getting on for 25% bigger. It's smashed 1,100,000 words with ease. It's well over 1,000 pages in the print edition. It weighs, as I said, so much it functions as a weight or a weapon. You could actually kill somebody with the Anime Encyclopedia, although I think the frozen leg of lamb is still a better bet, because you can't eat the evidence with the Anime Encyclopedia. But, it's a possible murder weapon for future editions of Fandom Cluedo. But the main thing about it is that it's still documenting an industry and art form that's alive, that's growing, that's changing, and that's doing it with one eye on the West, one eye on American money, one eye on the French, but not exclusively. Anime hasn't sold out yet. A lot of people talk about anime selling out to Hollywood, selling out to America. That hasn't happened. Anime's selling everywhere, but it's like Americans selling cars to Japan. If you go to sell cars to Japan, you don't sell them huge American gas guzzlers because they haven't got room for them and they can't afford them and they wouldn't fit Japanese cities. You sell them the sort of compact car that more and more Americans are going for now because it makes better economic sense, better spatial sense. In just the same way, when the Americans are making anime that they hope will sell to America, they know there are certain things they can slip in. They know you guys are just as fond as Japanese guys of underage girls and panty shots. They know that everybody likes a bit of moe. They know that everybody falls for a bit of sweet, old-fashioned romance. They stick those things in, but they don't make them exclusively for an American audience unless there's enough money on the table, as with the Marvel anime things, to make them. So it's still very diverse. And then the third project, which I'm really excited about because I've just got the cover for it, I've not seen any of the interior proofs yet, is a book that I was asked to do at the end of November last year and had to deliver by the end of December. Which is
quite a turnaround.
It is a bit of a turnaround, but luckily I had great help. It's called How to Draw Manga. Another of those, but I promise not a bad one, because what the publishers did was say, can you do a How to Draw Manga book that actually brings in artists and lets them explain to people in their own words and with shots of their studios and screenshots how they do it. So I recruited a great team of artists, and I was so lucky to get such great people at short notice. British, American, Chinese, Japanese, some of them with professional manga sales going way back, one of them who sold manga to the Japanese, which is quite an achievement. Two of them, in fact, have never made professional sales before. This is their first. So they've published online, they've self-published on the web, but we're debuting them in print. And that's just thrilling because they're really good artists, really diverse portfolios, something to cover every kind of style and medium. It's going to be a great book.
So this book will be very in-depth and you could see the very much overall history of it as well.
Well, I don't think it does anything on the history of it, but it certainly talks about the artistic development. I mean, some of the artists we've got, for example, are Bruce Lewis, who was part of the first wave of American manga fandom and also active in making manga from the late 80s. We've got Ricky Simons and Tavisha Wolfgarth Simons, who are so well known and such wonderful comic artists here. We've got a lady called Laura Watton Davis, who actually did her first fan manga for review in Anime UK way back in the 90s, and is a wonderful, wonderful designer and a really fine illustrator. We've got Sonia Leong, who's been teaching all over the world. A lady called Chie Kutsuwada, who has made manga in Japan and is making them here. Inko is the pen name of another Japanese artist who's currently resident in Britain, but has always made manga. Emmeline Puling Dobson is a Chinese artist like Sonia, who's also of British heritage. So we got lots of diversity. And Tony Luke, who sold manga to Kodansha's Comic Afternoon back in the 90s, says himself quite openly, I'm really dreadful at drawing. I'm absolutely no good at drawing. So what I did was I made manga by making my weakness my strength, by adapting photos by photoshopping models, photoshopping human models in costume, as well as models that I moved and animated, by using techniques in the computer, by overlaying bits of drawing, bits of sound effect and so on. Tony made a big success, a really successful manga. And we've got a young mangaka who's doing the same thing at the minute, a guy called Dan Byron, who's doing a webcomic set in his own suburb of London. So he goes out and shoots all the pictures, and you get this wonderful comic where the characters are moving against a real London backdrop, which is great for a grimy tale of London gangsters trying to leave it all behind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Helen, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking and being involved with the anime community and the manga community. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us.
That's a real pleasure. The anime and manga community have been one of the great joys of my life, and I've been lucky enough to have a life with many joys in it, but this is fantastic. So I hope that 2 messages will get across. One is that everybody is born creative. The great Pablo Picasso says every child is an artist. The problem is how to keep the artist alive as the child grows. And so much of our education system and so much of our social system is designed to say, oh, nice hobby, but can you afford the time? You've got to make a living, you've got to get serious, you've got to get a mortgage, you've got to get a car, you've got to get a degree. Be creative. Don't let anyone take your creativity away. How to Draw Manga will show you that in any circumstances you can sit down and create your own characters and your own ideas. And I hope that anyone reading any of my books will take that same message away, that I started out knowing nothing about anime, very little about Japan, nothing about manga. And I've been able, through working hard at it and being very fortunate and meeting lots of people, to build up a body of knowledge that enriches my life. So whatever form your creativity takes, don't let anyone take it from you. And don't surrender. Don't wuss out. Don't say, because my mom wants me to get a first from Harvard, I can't be a mangaka. Yes, you can. You can be the first CEO of a Fortune 500 company who makes manga on the side. There are people in Japan who do that. The guy who heads up Sanrio Corporation, who founded Sanrio Corporation, one of the world's biggest giftware corporations, is a fantasy novelist on the side. Don't give up on your creativity, because saying I'm too busy is just an excuse.
Helen, thank you so much for the great messages. Have a good convention.
Thank you. You too.